Sometime in the mid-1700s, a nun in France hears the terrible news. The Acadians have been forcibly removed from their land. They are suffering. They have no shelter, no food, and live in fear of violent attacks. She was called to serve the Lord, and he is clearly moving her spirit to help these people. She has made a decision. She will take the long voyage to the New World and aid the refugees. The nun will not come back to France alive, or even all in one piece. People tell legends for a lot of reasons. Sometimes we use them as a narrative device to describe trauma, or to warn of potential dangers, or sometimes to empower the next generation by alluding to how far their ancestors have come for them. The Headless Nun is a tale of a woman who was the picture of innocence and became a martyr for the Acadians in a time when they needed a hero. Welcome to Ladies Fright. I'm your host, Joan. There was a French settlement in present-day Nova Scotia called Acadia. Well, it was a French settlement. That was until 1710 and the siege of Port Royal conducted by the British military forces against the Acadians as well as the First Nations people of the Wabanaki Confederacy. Port Royal was the capital of Acadia, and its capture meant the end of French rule. Acadia had basically been fought over since the Europeans began to settle in the area nearly 100 years prior. Tensions between the French and English were at a high in Europe, and they brought that same rivalry to the New World. In 1713, a series of peace treaties called the Peace of Utrecht were created and ceded the territory to the British. The Acadians were allowed to stay on the land if they signed an unconditional oath of allegiance to Britain. Some people did sign and some people did not. This agreement meant if they were called to, they would have to fight against the neighboring First Nation people or even against the French. The risk of not being able to control the people of this crucial trade center was too much for the British, and they began to expel the Acadians from the land, whether they had signed the oath or not. There were several waves of expulsions. In the first wave, the Acadians who could leave went to other French colonies like Ile Saint-Jean, which is present-day Edward Island, or Ile Royale, now Cape Breton Island. Some were moved to new British colonies in New England, and some even further south to Spanish Louisiana, where Acadians eventually became known as the Cajuns. Not everyone was willing to leave peacefully. For many years, Acadians, along with the Mi'kmaq First Nations people, raided and attacked British forces and settlements, leading to the British feeling the Acadians were a major threat to them in the region, and they had to be removed. During the French and Indian War, Louisbourg was the French's last remaining stronghold to have dominance in the region. In 1758, the British laid siege and conquered Louisbourg and had the military power to expel the Acadians. They began to deport them directly to France. Unfortunately, nearly 1,000 Acadians did not make it due to the sinking of the Duke William, Violet, and Ruby ships. Some of those who did make it to Europe were sent to Britain and were forced to live in crowded warehouses, riddled with disease caused by such close quartering. For those who remained in the New World, nearly 3,500 of them fled to the Miramichi area. This is where the nun finds the refugees she seeks to care for. Her name was Sister Mary Aquinu. At least that's what we're told. This was likely a name added to the story over time. Aquinu in French means unknown, and Mary is a common biblical name. The nun either had a name and it's just been forgotten and replaced with this nom de plume, or this is truly a folk legend, and that is the best someone could come up with. The story goes that Sister Mary was quick to gain the trust and admiration of the refugees. She aided the sick and wounded, she helped deliver babies, she organized a community fund to help financially aid those in need. In the short time she had been with these people, she had truly made an impact. When word reached the refugee Acadians that the British were searching for them, The fear of a violent attack and plunder swept through the group. They gathered all their greatest valuables and entrusted Sister Mary with the safekeeping of their treasures. She was said to have buried it somewhere in the forest close to the banks of the Miramichi River. She told no one of the whereabouts of the treasure, keeping the knowledge solely to herself. Late one night, Sister Mary was walking back from tending to a person in need. Some accounts say this person was suffering from an illness, others say she was aiding in a difficult birth. In either case, it was late and she was probably already tired, perhaps too tired to notice that she was not alone on that fateful walk through the forest home. Varied versions tell this part of the tale differently, but to put it simply, Sister Mary was violently attacked. Most versions have the location of the treasure as the motivation. One tale says that they were sailors or pirates who had gone mad with scurvy, looking for a way out of a life on the sea and to finance the cure to their ailment. Other versions say that it was thieves or British soldiers who were looking to steal the treasure. However, she refused to give up the location of the treasure and stayed silent. The people had put their trust in her, and she was not going to sacrifice that trust to these attackers. There is an outlier of the stories which does not say the treasure was the incentive. Worse, instead of having an understandable reason for the assault, there is no motive. Just Sister Mary being at the wrong place at the wrong time. A common telling of the story claims a mad fur trapper crossed paths with her and just attacked. A lot of the times, we as humans like to know why people do what they do, especially if their actions could cause harm to us. This has been a debate around the enjoyment of the true crime genre. Many people have described having a morbid interest in it because they feel they've gained some knowledge. Now they could outsmart the killer or avoid the situation victims found themselves in. Now, this is victim blaming, but in a way, it's such a human way of coping with fear. So I do think people find it particularly scary when someone is the victim and they could have done nothing to avoid it. It would not have mattered if Sister Mary knew where the treasure was or not. It would not have even mattered if she was carrying the valuables with her. It just happened because she and he happened to be there at the very same time. Just as the stories begin the same, they also have the same ending. There is no different if the assailants are pirates, thieves, sailors, soldiers, or mad. All of them finish their onslaught by cutting off her head. Sister Mary's lifeless body was found soon after. However, her head was missing. Some believed it was tossed in the water. Other tales say the head was taken as a trophy by whoever attacked her. The Acadian people only felt it was right to allow Sister Mary to rest in peace in her home and sent her remains back to France, leaving both the location of the treasure and her own head lost somewhere in the forest. Even after all the efforts to put her spirit to rest, Sister Mary still wanders the cove. Soon after her burial, people started to talk about how they see the nun's spirit walking the same path in the woods. People have claimed to see a figure peer out from behind trees at night, looking like a nun, but once she comes closer, they will notice her habit is missing a head. Some say she comes and asks for help finding her head. She may even offer you money to do so. Other times, she's already found her head, and she's asking for those who witness her to return it to her body. In either case, if the person refuses to help her, she will follow them home and kill them in their sleep. This reminds me of some Japanese legends like Akamato or Kuchisake Onna, in the way that a person is asked a question and there is no answer, which leads to a happy ending. In this case, you are either searching for a head in the dark or trying to book a plane ticket to France to help this woman, or she will kill you. And like a lot of urban legends and hauntings, that is really it for our headless nun. A lot of build up to the creation of the haunting or the reason behind it, but the actual ghostly accounts come with very few details or just repeated qualities. You could make the argument that ghosts are actually some kind of echo from the past we are seeing, and you can't comb many more details off of an echo besides what was already there. Hearing about this haunting, it stuck out to me that she was a Christian figure who had been beheaded. Beheading felt dramatic. Not to discuss how someone should be offed, but to behead someone takes effort. Instead of it being happenstance, it felt like a very intentional detail. It also felt familiar. I was raised Roman Catholic, and as a person being beheaded turned martyr felt like a tale I had heard before. Then it came to me. John the Baptist. John the Baptist is said to be a Jewish preacher from the 1st century. He believed a Messiah who would be greater than himself would be brought to earth, basically predicting the coming of Jesus. John's sect of Judaism practiced baptism, which is when someone is bathed to symbolize the washing away of the sin that Adam and Eve brought to humans when they defied God, known in the Christian belief as the original sin. John was the one to baptize Jesus, part of the reason he has that title he has. Many of Jesus' early followers were originally followers of John, though none of this really explains the beheading thing. I'm gonna apologize ahead of time for all the pronunciation I am gonna mess up in this next section. I'm really sorry. John got into some political trouble around 30 AD. Herod Antipas, the Herodian leader of Galilee and Perea, was married to Phasalia, though that wasn't for long, since on a trip to Rome to visit his half-brother, Herod Philip I, he met Philip's wife, Herodias, and decided he wanted to marry her instead. Antipas divorced his wife, which made her father, King Aretas IV, not happy, and he declared war on Herod. John heard all of this and said, yeah, the divorce of your wife to marry your brother's wife is pretty messed up and goes against Jewish law. Antipas and Herodias were worried that since John had such a following, him condemning their relationship could cause a rebellion, so they imprisoned him. While in custody, Antipas and Herodias had a birthday banquet. At this banquet, Herodias' daughter, Salome, was dancing. This pleased Antipas so much, he swore he would fulfill any request Salome had. Herodias saw this as an opportunity and told her daughter what she should ask for: John the Baptist's head on a platter. Antipas did not plan on executing John, but now what could he do? He had sworn an oath, and either from the pressure of duty or maybe from the guests, he had to do it. He gave the order: serve us John's head. Early Christianity saw John's death for speaking out to the political power for his religious beliefs as a martyr, and a way of foreshadowing the persecution Christians would face later on. During the time of Roman rule, beheading was an honorable form of execution. It was quick and a lot less painful than the torture of a crucifixion. This execution style was reserved for Roman citizens as well as criminals who pose a political threat, like prisoners of war. John was definitely seen as someone who could rally people enough to go against the Herodian leader and his new wife. Beyond the story of John the Baptist, being headless also has a symbolism in the Christian faith. The New Testament acknowledges the head of the church as Christ. If there is imagery of him without his head, it is sending the message that there is a lack of direction or authority. It's also seen as a symbol for those who were true believers and remained faithful to the Christian God and refused corruption during the end of days. Revelation 24 says, quote, I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for their testimony of Jesus and for the word of God. This has not worshipped the beast or its image and had not received its mark on their foreheads or hands, unquote. In the Christian faith, beheadings are a sign of a person's commitment to the religion. Pretty inspirational. The Acadians were in the middle of a war. They were displaced, removed from the land that they had made their home, and were being killed if they did not comply with the British. I would assume they felt persecuted much like early Christians. It would make sense that they would want a martyr of their own. Is it too crazy to see how Sister Mary could have been modeled after John the Baptist? In 2025, when this is being filmed, we are very aware of the violence that takes place from displacing people. Within the Wikipedia article on the expulsion of the Acadians, there's a section discussing if it falls under the definition of a genocide. I will say the historians quoted in the article argue what happened does not really follow what historically has been known as a genocide, but I bring it up to acknowledge the debate. During these times of violent expansion, people had to live in fear they could be run off the land at any time. I can only imagine some of the Acadians felt that they were victims to the British and wanted someone to advocate for them. I don't think Sister Mary was real, but I do think she embodied some real feelings at the time. A nun is a chaste woman who has decided to devote herself to religion. Besides a freshly born baby, you can't get much closer to the typical idea of innocence than that. Not only was Sister Mary a symbol of purity and innocence, she was also said to be doing active good in the community. She was a savior figure. When cultures are scared, they create boogeymen. This comes in the form of moral panics or even urban legends. However, there are times when people, instead of making a boogeyman, will make a hero. The Headless Nun is more than just a ghost story. It's multifaceted. For those who may have held sympathy for the Acadians' plight, it's a story to rally around. An innocent woman was killed out of senseless violence? For those who wanted to harm the Acadians, a ghost in the woods may keep them out of there, allowing for the group to keep their hiding place safe. She matches the symbolism of martyrs that have come before her. She's also a symbol of being lost and doomed to roam without a place of true rest. The Headless Nun is a lot of things, but most of all, she is the creation from a group of people who needed something to look out for them. But what do I know? I'm just some lady talking about some frights. Thank you, everyone. If you've made it this far, I would really appreciate if you could like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to, you can follow Ladies Fright on all different social media. All you have to do is go to our description and go to the link tree, and all the links will be there. I need to apologize. I know it's late in the game. I really need to apologize for any bad pronunciation. One, I'm dyslexic. Two, I haven't taken French in years. Actually, we go to Montreal quite a bit. We have in the past, at least. And I'm best known for being able to say I don't speak French very, very well. So I don't speak French, as you can probably tell from the bad pronunciations and also the Bible things, as I mentioned before too. Or maybe I didn't. I don't remember. I'm dyslexic. So reading is already a challenge. But yeah, thank you so much for coming. I really enjoyed this, and I'll catch you soon. Bye.